When you spend a lot of time with the character and when you try to find your own parallels with it, you end up more often than not falling short of a character like Steve Rogers. You know what I mean? He's an impossible. The bar is set impossibly high. So.
Hey there, Kira here. Welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the MCU's most recent and controversial characters, Captain America. No, not this guy. This guy. I guess maybe we should call him Captain Faux America. Am I right? Well, that's the last time I let Theo write jokes for these. Marvel recently put out these new limited series on Disney+, and to everybody's surprise, they've both been really good. More importantly, they've allowed us to get some really good and much-needed character development for some of the more underappreciated characters in the MCU. However, of all the characters that are in these new shows, the one that really captivated me the most was the new Captain America, John Walker. Despite the instant hate and memes that John Walker was met with, and to be completely honest, I wasn't much of a fan of him myself at first either. When the show came to its conclusion, and everything was said and done, I couldn't help but feel that John Walker had the potential to be an even better Captain America than Steve Rogers.
Is he though?
Okay, I know that's a bit of a hot take, but just hear me out here. From the get-go, I've always had a bit of a problem with Steve Rogers. As Chris Evans mentioned at the top of the video, the bar that Steve Rogers set was impossibly high. So impossible, in fact, that I just never really bought it. Throughout the entire MCU saga, Steve is presented as this ultra-virtuous, Jesus-like figure with nearly no flaws, except for the exceptional use of a bad word here or there.
Fury, you son of a bitch.
Ooh, you kiss your mother with that mouth?
And well, we all just know that nobody's like that in real life. And the people who usually present themselves that way end up being on the news for committing some nefarious act down the line. John, on the other hand, though obviously flawed, comes off as much more human, and as such, much more relatable. However, throwing my personal biases aside, what I find interesting about Steve and John's stories both is the central theme of their characters. That is the importance of strength. Though it may not seem the case, Steve and John's origin stories have strong parallels to each other. Both of their stories examine how one is to approach the world when it seems like everyone and everyone around is tougher and stronger than you. Steve Rogers, who's had a genetically weak disposition since birth, and John Walker, who was sent to take down a bunch of super soldiers with a frisbee and a gun. The reason many fail to see these parallels is because their stories are approached from different ends of the spectrum. Steve's story is about a man who knows he's weak and then suddenly acquires strength, whereas John's story is about a man who thinks he's strong but suddenly realizes that he's weak. Now, looking at their stories from a bird's eye view, you can see that when confronted with their weakness, Steve and John handle their situations very differently. However, one thing that I think many might be reluctant to acknowledge, and give John credit for, is the enormous weight he had on his shoulders.
I understand that! I understand that! I lived my life by your mandates. I dedicated my life to your mandates!
In order to fully grasp what I'm talking about, I think we actually need to go back to a scene in WandaVision.
Beating anything she's displayed in the past.
She could have taken out Thanos on her own if he hadn't initiated a blitz. I mean, nobody else came close.
Well, I'd argue that Captain Marvel came close.
Now, if Jimmy Woo, a relatively low-level FBI guy, and Monica, who was blipped for 5 years, somehow know how much work Captain Marvel put in, it stands to reason that they know how much work Captain America put in. I mean, not only was he able to lift Mjolnir, he was also going toe-to-toe with Thanos himself. It's also extremely likely that John is aware of this fact also. With that in mind, just stop and put yourself into John's shoes for a second. You're expected to live up to the name of this great hero who can defeat Thanos. And yet you can't even seem to beat a few super soldiers? Yeah, I'd be super frustrated too. In fact, there's one line in particular that I feel really highlights John's mentality throughout his ordeals.
You're right, man. They weren't even super soldiers.
Admittedly, John probably should have known that he had no business messing around with the Dora Milaje. But even still, realizing your predecessor was able to go toe-to-toe with some super jacked space alien, whereas you can't even beat some lady with a stick, it's definitely a blow to the ego. Steve, on the other hand, never had these expectations put on him. When he was weak, there was nobody he needed to protect. Nobody was relying on him as their shield. And when the time came to where he did become America's champion, he already had the power to carry that mantle. Now, I know a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but given the situation he was in, I believe John Walker was absolutely right to take the super serum. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the characters who don't have powers in the MCU don't seem to have the best luck. And considering the odds he was up against, I think John, in that moment, realized something that Tony Stark alluded to in Avengers.
You may not be a threat, but you better stop pretending to be a hero.
A hero? Like you? You're a laboratory experiment, Rogers. Everything special about you came out of a bottle.
And yeah, I know that's not entirely true. But let's be honest with ourselves. Without the serum, Steve Rogers isn't beating Red Skull, Winter Soldier, or Thanos. In fact, without the serum, even if he was able to lift Mjolnir, there's nothing he'd be able to do with it. The unfortunate truth is that this guy, without the serum, fades into the recess of history as just another nice guy. This is something that I believe Steve Rogers also eventually came to realize as he faced the increasing threats that came his way. On the other side, John eventually learned what it truly meant to be Captain America. During his admittedly rushed redemption arc, John realizes that what made Steve Rogers so great was his constant willingness to put others before himself. He realized that just as having the heart but not the strength makes you ineffectual, the opposite, having the strength but not the heart, makes you just another bully. Now that Falcon and the Winter Soldier has concluded, out of all the characters we know to be in this next phase of Marvel's Cinematic Universe, John Walker, or should I say US Agent, is the character I'm looking most forward to seeing develop. Will he continue to walk the path of enlightenment and become a greater hero than even Steve Rogers? Or will his temper and ego flare up again and lead him down a path of ruin? Only time can tell, but either way, I'm here for it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like or a comment. And if you want to see more, be sure to hit that subscribe button. For now, Kira out. Bye-bye.